All right, so by now, most of you know that I have two grandkids, Haven, who is 3, and Nolan, who is 1. And right now, Haven, at her age and where Nolan is, Haven pretty much has the upper hand. She can rule Nolan. And so when they get up in the bonus room and they're playing with their toys, Haven pretty much has the run of the toys. And if Nolan, by chance, grabs one of her toys, all Haven has to do is go grab the toy away from Nolan, and the only recourse Nolan has right now is to cry. That's it. And so when you're trying to teach Haven to share, you can tell that she's processing the thought right in front of your eyes. She might not be saying it, but what you could almost tell what she's thinking by the look on her face. And she's like, not a chance am I going to share this with Nolan. This is my toy. Someone gave it to me. And I'm accustomed to having my toy and playing with my toy. And so her mom or dad or one of the grandparents will say, well, Haven, like, that's not what we do. That's not who we are. Like, you need to share this toy with your brother. And again, Haven might relent in that because we're asking. She don't want to, but she'll relent. But you can see what she thinks. She's like, since when? Like, where did this universal rule come from that we have to share our toys? Like, Nolan just needs to stand on his own 2 feet. He needs to go figure it out for himself, and he needs to get his own toys. And now I might be exaggerating what Haven is saying, but we all know the challenge to teach our children how to share. And I would love to say that since we all, whether you're watching online or you're in the room, since we've all grown past childhood, that we have mastered the art of sharing, that it doesn't plague us anymore as adults. But what we're going to find out today, that may or may not be true. We're in week 4 of our series entitled Around the Table, and we have been leaning in pretty hard on this practice of hospitality. It's the practice of the 4th mark here at 7 Marks, one who engages in biblical community. And we have been encouraging you, like, get around the table with somebody in the family here at 7 Marks, like share a meal, grab a cup of coffee, and work hard at practicing the way of Jesus together, create deeper relationships within this family of 7 Marks. And man, I hope that some of you are doing it. I know that Martha and I continue to engage every week, and even this past week, I met a lady on Wednesday night that said, hey, I've been coming here for 7 years, and I've never invited somebody into my house, and I did it this past week, and it was amazing. So we love hearing those stories, but up till now, we have been really intentional about just talking about getting around the table with somebody that's from the 7 Marks family, somebody that's across the aisle from you. We've been pushing in, and that's been really intentional, but now we're going to shift gears just a little bit. One of the reasons why we push so hard at you getting around the table with somebody from 7 Marks first is because we feel that if we are going to make a significant impact in this city, right? If we're going to be able to do something for Jesus in this city, man, we're better together in doing that. We can get more accomplished together. And so, since we can, if we're gonna walk shoulder to shoulder, then we should know each other's name at least, right? We should know a little bit of each other's story in this family. And one of the benefits of that is that we could, in knowing each other, we could leverage each other's strengths, right? And then we could walk alongside of each other and help each other in our weaknesses. Because if we're going to carry out the mission of Jesus in our city, we're going to need each other, which brings us to where we're going to go this morning. about getting around a table that shares with others. And so as we mentioned in week 1, for the past couple weeks, when we talk about the word hospitality, it conjures up all different thoughts. For some, it might be a person. We think of a person that's very hospitable, very warm, or we think of an environment where you come into it and they've kind of gone overboard, and there's this sense where they're rolling out the red carpet, or we think about the industry of hospitality. But all of those, the truth is that all of those, they don't even capture the true essence of the word hospitality. And we get the word hospitality from the Greek word philoxenia. Philoxenia. All right, somebody say that. Philoxenia. All right, forget. All right, so phil from the word phileo. It's one of the Greek words for love, phileo. And some of you remember the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, right? Of course, everybody loves everybody in Philadelphia, right? So the city of brotherly love. So this word phileo is love for family, all right? And then you add to that xenia from xenos, which is the word for stranger. So if you think of xenophobia, the fear of stranger, right? We teach our kids stranger danger, right? So simply, when you look at the word hospitality, it means love of the stranger, the outsider, the other. And we think, well, who is that? Traditionally, when you look through the scriptures, it refers to the poor, the needy, the widow, the orphan, the immigrant. But in our modern day, it fits, it kind of encompasses those who are vulnerable in our midst, those who are in need, the poor, that they have physical needs, they have emotional needs, they have spiritual needs, and then one that we often forget, most importantly, they have relational needs. And in the ancient world, love of the stranger was considered a fundamental moral responsibility. It was in the fiber of the community. You looked out for one another, and it brought with it the idea of, like, I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine. And it involved you offering food and clothing and shelter to a stranger in need, somebody that was on the outside of your circle. And it's hard for us to get our head around what it was like back then, because for us, we have been taught to be self-sufficient. And we have all of these modern day conveniences that push us towards independence. We don't need anybody. We were taught not to need anybody. In fact, we expect the other person not to need me either, right? All of us operate in these worlds where we have grown to be independent of each other. For example, a couple weeks ago, I had to get my car worked on. So I drove my car to the shop to where I'm going to pay a guy to fix my car. And then from the shop, I called Uber. And Uber came and got me and drove me to a restaurant where they're going to serve me some food while I wait for my car. See, we surround ourselves and we're in a world where we can make it on our own, and we don't use anybody. The funny thing was, at the end of the day, Uber couldn't come get me. So it was only then that I called a friend, right, to come get me from where I was. But it wasn't that way at all in those days. Like there was a dependence on one another. Your only hope was if you got help from somebody else. And so where did this moral responsibility come from? Well, it came from our Creator. Like, it is sown into us. It's intuitive to us to know when we see somebody in need, like, we're callous at times, but we just know it. Like, I should do something here. I should help this person. It's intuitive within us because our Creator created us with it. Hospitality, love of the stranger, the vulnerable, the one in need. It's anchored in the nature and character of God. We see it as he calls out a people for himself, right? You remember the Israelite people. When you start to open up the Bible, you see these chosen people. God called these people out, and he said to Abraham, I'm gonna make a nation out of you. Your nation's gonna bless all of the other nations. And he calls them into a strange land. But he also says, there's going to be a season where your people are going to go into a strange land and be in slavery. So we see that in Egypt. These chosen people of God, they become slaves in Egypt, and they're outcasts. They're strangers in this land. But then God brings them to a land that they would call their own. But here's the interesting thing. It's almost as if God knew that once they get into this land and they're going to be settled in this land, and it's a land of plenty, they're going to forget. They're going to forget me. They're going to forget who they are. They're going to get what happened to them. So God gives them some guidelines before they even get into the land. And part of the guidelines that he gives them is their behavior towards the outsider, towards the stranger. And he says, listen, I want you to treat people on the outside of the family, your family, like family. I want you to share your table with the stranger. In fact, this is how God communicated his desire for his people in Leviticus 19. When a stranger resides with you in the land. Remember, we're talking about a stranger, one who is vulnerable, one who is in need, one who needed shelter or food or clothing. The stranger who resides with you shall be to you, listen, as one of your citizens. You shall love him as yourself. Where have we heard that before? For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. And you see this repeated over and over again in God's instruction to his people throughout the law. He goes as far as to say, when you harvest your fields or your vineyards, don't go all the way to the edge. And don't glean it bare. Like leave some room for the poor and for the needy, for the orphan, for the widow. Leave some room. Leave some stuff left over for them. And we know, he says this, remember how harshly you were treated. Remember what it was like back in Egypt. So bring that back to your memory as you glean your fields and leave some. And we all know that when we've gone through something, we have this ability to empathize in a greater way for those people that are in front of us if we've gone through it ourselves, and we can help them in the midst of what they're going through. And God in essence says to the Israelites, listen, your experience in Egypt makes you a perfect candidate to bring grace to the people that are around you, and love for the stranger. So this idea of love for the stranger, it originates with God himself. He sows it into us, and he hand delivers it to us for the people around us. And it was woven into the fabric of their culture. But when you get to the first century and then moving forward in history, you see this gear change when it comes to hospitality. It was like hospitality on steroids. Christians were practicing it at such a high level that it was beginning to turn the heads of people. Even the pagan emperor of Rome noticed how the Christians were acting towards people in their culture, in their city, in their town. Listen to what he says, speaking of Christians. Why do we not observe that it is their benevolence to strangers, their care for the graves of the dead, and the pretended holiness of their lives that have done the most to increase Christianity? For it is disgraceful that when no Jew ever has to beg, and the impious Christians support not only their own poor, but ours as well, all men will see that our people lack aid from us. The Christians were getting it done. They knew who they were and what they were supposed to be doing. And they were doing a better job at taking care of the Roman Empire than the Roman government. They were sharing their table and their life unlike any other people group of the time. And that would be like us turning the head of one of our elected officials because we were doing such a great job in meeting the needs of the vulnerable in our city. That we were eradicating homelessness or making sure that every kid had a home to live in. And they were getting it done. They were getting it done for those who couldn't return the favor. Where did that come from? Why? Why were they acting at such a high level? Well, to use the old Sunday school answer, Jesus. Jesus. And now the origin of hospitality, God himself became flesh, and he showed us how to live. He showed us what to do. He showed us how to care for the least of these. And when Jesus came, he took hospitality to a different level, an entirely different level. He's the one that said, hey, when you have a banquet, man, don't just go out and invite all of your friends, the people that will invite you back. He said, no, you invite the people, those that nobody is inviting to their table. The lame, the sick, the poor, those who aren't able to return the favor. And it was as if Jesus was saying, listen, I want you to put up a big neon sign that says, this is what the kingdom of God looks like, where everybody is valued, everybody is included at the table. I want you to share your table with those who no one else would share their table with. And in Matthew 25, Jesus paints this picture of the importance that he places on the one in need, the vulnerable. Look how he communicates it. He says, when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. When it's all said and done, at the end of time, at the end of the day, before him he will gather all the nations, and he will separate people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. The sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on his right, but the goats on his left. The king will say to those on his right, come, these are followers of Jesus, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. Now look how he says this. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. Key word, welcome. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me. And then the righteous will answer him, like, I didn't even see that. Lord, when do we see you hungry and feed you? I don't remember that at all. Or thirsty and give you drink. And when do we see you a stranger and welcome you in to share our table? Like, when do we see that? Or naked and clothe you. And when do we see you sick or in prison and visit you? And then the king will answer them, truly I say to you, as you did it to the least of these, the stranger, the outcast, the sojourner, the one in need, the vulnerable, of these brothers, my brothers, you did it to me. We, according to Jesus, are supposed to see him in the face of the stranger, the outsider, the other, the prisoner, the weak, the naked, the hungry, the sick. When Jesus walked onto this planet, he offered recognition and dignity and worth and value to all the people the world had forgotten. The leper, he would touch a leper. Nobody would do that. The blind, he gave them the time of day, and the lame and the possessed, he would heal them. But Jesus walked on this planet, and he did that, and then he handed the baton to his followers. That's us. That's us. And he said, I want you to do the same thing. I want you to do the same thing that I did. I want you to live the same way that I live. Man, how awesome would it be? How awesome would it be to have the kind of heart that we don't even realize we're reflecting Jesus? It's just oozing out of us. It just naturally overflows out of our life to have that kind of heart, because we know who He is, we know who we are in Him, and we know what to do. It just happens like, I want that kind of heart at the end of this talk today and at the end of our gathering. Man, I just want to stop now so you can listen to this song that Josh is going to sing, but it talks about having a heart that's open and molded to be shaped into the character of Jesus. That's why hospitality, particularly on behalf of the least of these, is so important for our church family. It shows off the indiscriminate grace of God, that everybody's welcome at the table. We share the table together. Dustin, Willis, and Brandon Clements say this: hospitality is a theology of recognition where, through simple acts, we convey the truth that wayward sinners are made in the image of God. Where we say to those who might doubt their worth and their purpose, I see you. I see you. You are welcome here. Pull up a chair. It makes the outsider the insider. And so, up to this point, for most of us in the room, watching online, you're tracking with me. We agree about this. We agree that we should meet the needs of those around us that are vulnerable and that are in need, that we should serve and give and collect things to meet needs. But for most of us, including me, if we're honest, that's where we stop. That's where we stop. We're slow to take the next step in sharing our lives with the stranger, sharing our table with the stranger. We'll give you $1, but not a minute. We'll give you a bus ticket, but we won't share a ride. After all, my life is way too busy with all of the stuff about me. Like, my life is full of me. My family, my work, my life, my issues, all of the stuff that's going on with me. Remember what I talked about a little bit earlier, where God told them, leave the edge of the field. Don't go all the way to the edge. Don't glean it bare. But for some of us, we treat our life opposite of that. We go to the edge. We glean it bare, so we have no time, we have no margin in our life to share our life with those that are in need. Hospitality is not primarily a call to giving and to assistance, see, important as that is, but rather to welcome, to relationship. Now, that's a whole different level. That's a whole different level, because that involves our most precious commodity, our time, right? Our life. But when we give our time, it begins to break down the barriers between those that are in need and us, to where we break down these relational disconnections when we sit together around a table and we give time to one another. A few years ago, we did this event right in this room. It was a big event. Tables everywhere where we invited all those that were living on the streets and in the woods, and we invited them into this room, and it was awesome. And we asked you to help with that. And there were a ton of people who offered to set up and clean up and cook and provide food. But what we found out that day is that fewer people were comfortable just to sit down at the table and have a conversation and get to know the stranger across the table. Now, I don't say that to shame anybody in the room at all or watching online. I don't say that, but I'm just pointing out how difficult hospitality is compared to service. Because hospitality is about welcoming. It's about relationship. When I share a meal with you, I am saying to you, like, I want to be your friend. Like, I want to build a relationship with you. And so now I want to give you, as we close, some steps on how to wade into this. Now, I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to be completely transparent, as I always am, like, this is hard. This has been hard for me. Because I look at my own life, and I'm like, okay, where are you doing this, Paul? Where are you doing this? So I'm with you in this, right? We are going to wade into this together. And the first way is to share your stuff, and it's going to get incrementally harder as I go, all right? So the first one is just share your stuff. Now, I don't know if you've ever gone to what they now call convenience centers. I call it the dump, okay? But for a while, for whatever reason, they call it convenience center. So Durant Road, if you go there in the middle of the day on Saturday, most likely you're going to have to wait in line. And it's amazing if you're sitting and you're watching all of these containers, how much stuff we throw away. It's crazy. For all of us, online, in the room, in just about every category of our lives, we have way more than we need. So, let me challenge you, like I'm challenging myself. Let's make room for hospitality in those areas of our life, in our clothes, in our pantry. When you go to the grocery store, put stuff in your grocery cart for somebody else. I loved it when we were going through the coronavirus season, lockdown, and we put out this call, hey, bring some food. We're going to help one of our partners. You're going to hear from him in a minute. We're going to help one of our city partners collect food. And it was cool because I would see the same people week after week that would come and drop off food here. They had put it into the rhythm of their life. And so when they went to purchase groceries, they just purchased more and they brought them here in order to give to someone else. And so maybe for you, it could be anything, right? We go to fast food all the time. So why not, for a week, don't do any fast food for a week. That would kill some of y'all. So don't do any fast food for a week. But in what you save, right, give those resources to somebody else, or fast a day or two. And the resources that you would spend, give to someone else. Figure out a way to share your stuff, all right? Number 2, share space with a stranger. Now, I'm getting ready to press in a little bit. I'm pressing in on myself. I live in a nice middle-class community where, for the most part, everyone around me is like me. The community I live in ensures that, like, when I take a walk at night, I am going to bump into people and encounter people that are generally in the same socioeconomic category as me. My world, in other words, is designed in some ways to where it keeps me detached and distanced from the strangers in our city, those that are in need, those that are vulnerable. And it's not a new problem. In the 4th century, the bishops, they were complaining that their parishioners were exempting themselves from engaging the poor, and they were outsourcing it to the church. The church can take care of this. And John Wesley said this in a sermon once: one great reason why the rich, that's us, that's everybody in this room, everybody watching online, right? One reason why the rich in general have so little sympathy for the poor is because they seldom visit them. Hence it is that one part of the world does not know what the other suffers. Many of them do not know because they do not care to know. They keep out of the way of knowing it and then plead their voluntary ignorance as an excuse for the hardness of their heart. Ouch. Ouch. So Matthew 25, if you keep reading beyond the text that I read, it says to the goats, like, you're going to be forever separated from God, because when you saw me in need, you didn't do anything. When you saw me naked, you didn't clothe me. When you saw me hungry, you didn't feed me. And they're like, when did we see that? Like, we never saw that. If we saw that, we would have done something about it, but we never saw that. The role of followers of Jesus is to reduce the distance between the rich and the poor, between the privileged and the marginalized, between the haves and the have-nots. And hospitality is how you get it done, welcoming the love of the stranger. And one of our partners is the Dream Center. And I asked Jeremy, executive director, if he would come up and just talk about this. Like, there are ready-made ways that will help us get in the proximity of those who are vulnerable and in need. Like, we have the opportunity, and Jeremy, one of our partners, he'll tell us a little bit about it. Jeremy, thanks for being here.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share about, not just about the Dream Center, but really that passage from Matthew 25 is one that drives me. Our ministry, we reach out into the many communities across Wake County. We've touched 47 communities since the pandemic started, and you all have been there. I don't feel like I have to explain myself from scratch, because a lot of you have been out there serving at Spring Forest Apartments. A lot of you have served at Granite Acres Mobile Home Park. A lot of you have served at Raleigh Millbank Apartments and the Oaks Apartments that we've served. And you've served over 100,000 pounds of food in those communities alongside of us. And so I hope the Dream Center isn't a strange name to you. And I was going to go into some statistics and things like that. But what drives me is the person that we're trying to reach. It is the stranger. It is going to the highways and the byways. It is going. We've started a recovery ministry that meets on Tuesday nights at 6. It's an easy thing to plug into, and we offer this very thing. You can have dinner, and what I learned, Andrew's sitting over here, who's part of our team. Andrew, would you raise your hand? I'd love for you to meet him afterwards. But that first time, we decided instead of, we didn't know who would come, and we just launched this about a month ago. We said, well, let's go take it to the highways and byways and offer people. We took our van to Moore Square. We filled it up with people off the streets, and we brought it back. We brought people and said, we want to have a meal with you. And since the first time we went, we had a guy who had a drink concoction ready to commit suicide. And he was sick of it. He said, I set it down, and I said, God help me. He took a walk out from the woods where he lived, and there was our van. And there was Andrew inviting him to come to this dinner, and instead of doing this drink, he got into the van. Amen? This last week, we had somebody who came out, and he said, Jeremy, you don't want me to come because I stink. I smell. I live on the streets. I said, we want you here. No, you don't. No, you don't. I don't believe. Yes, we do. Would you come? And he came, and he had a meal with us, and he did stink. He did smell. But you know what? That was the smell of Jesus at that night, right? If Jesus is going to say, I was hungry and you fed me, I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink, that was Jesus. So that's what Jesus was referring to in that passage. And you have the opportunity. What I love is the surprise on people's faces in that passage, because it was like, when did we do this? In fact, that's how the believer ought to live. It's just our outpouring of hospitality. It's our outpouring of meeting with people. And when we do that, it's a surprise. We say, Lord, this is just how I was driven because God gave us the compassion to love others. We'd love for you to be involved. If you want to know more, you can see us at the table in the back or go to RaleighDreamCenter.org. And we would love to connect you to serve in any of these communities Tuesday through Saturday during the days or on the weekends, and also Tuesday nights. If you want to have dinner with somebody, with a stranger, you can come and see us at 6 o'clock, and we'll see what the Lord does with that. Thank you for the chance to share.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks. So share your stuff, share your space with a stranger, and then lastly, share a meal with a stranger. Now, some of you are like, Paul, I haven't even shared a meal with somebody at 7 Marks yet. All right, so now you're pushing a little bit. But hang with me for a minute. Yesterday, some of us men went to help clean up in one of the tent cities in our area. And although we met a couple of the guys that live in this particular tent city, for the most part, they don't trust us. They don't trust us at all. They don't know us, and we don't know them. And we haven't shared space with them. We haven't shared a meal with them. And for most of us, it's hard to eat with people that are not like us or in need. It's uncomfortable. They're not people that would normally be around our table. And so it's a little bit difficult. But I told Rochelle yesterday, like, I think maybe we just need to bring a food truck here and on the edge of the road and serve food to them for free, and then just sit in the woods with them and get to know their stories and find out who they are. You know, Jesus, he led the way for us here. I don't pretend to know how to engage in this entirely. And I told the guys yesterday when we were working, like, I'm still doing work on my heart. Like, I want my heart to be like the heart of Jesus. And when I'm in that setting, like, I'm just getting going personally. I'm just getting my heart going. I'm trying to get myself in a position to where he can form my heart. We need to see Jesus in the face of every stranger. It takes us back to grace. We know who we were before Jesus. We were lost in our sin. We were outsiders. And through the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, he made us insiders when we believe in him. And he gives us a heart, this supernatural heart that's able to do stuff that we wouldn't do on our own. That's one of the reasons why we have the partnerships that we do at 7 Marks in the city. We try and prioritize those partners that give us the opportunity to build relationships with people, like Dream Center. And there's 2 others that will be in the lobby today, Habitat for Humanity. And these guys build homes for the stranger. They show them love by providing a home that they would not be able to get any other way, and a place to belong. And then a relatively new partner for us, Christian Library Resources, and they use books and resources as a way in to start a relationship with those in prison and start a conversation about Jesus. And then there's one other table in addition to those, and we get ready to shift our city focus. So for 2 months, we focus on each of our city initiatives, and for the past 2 months, it's been people in the margins. In the next 2 months, it's going to be foster care. Right now, we have 11 families in our body who are fostering or ready to foster. And man, that's exciting. Just a few years, we had no one. And so it's exciting to see how God is moving. And this past week, I sat down with a dad who's fostering. He and his wife have 2 children, and they're fostering 2. 2 of them that are 3 and 2 of them that are 2 in the same house. But you can imagine how you can help a foster family like that. You don't need to foster, but you can bring them groceries. You can do laundry. There's any number of things that we can do for our foster families. So on June 7th, we're going to have a night here where you can come and you can meet our foster families, and you can figure out, hey, how can I jump in here behind the scenes and help this movement this city initiative of foster care. 7 marks, we want to be followers like Jesus. We want to have the heart of Jesus. And so we have to allow ourselves to get in close proximity, put ourselves in a position where God can do something in our heart. And I don't know what that looks. I don't want anybody walking out of here feeling guilty that you're not doing it, or I got to do something. I do want you to wrestle with it in your heart and take that step, whatever that is, in proximity to those that are vulnerable and in need, and just see what God does with that.